Great. So what are wireframes? Wireframes are a visualization tool that are used to help present a proposed design and structure of a content of an app or web page. I like to think of them as a design blueprint, basically. Throughout tonight, I will probably use the term app, but it's interchangeable. It can be app, it can be web page, it can be whatever it is that you're designing. My job currently, I'm building an app, so my head that's where I go. So apologies if it gets confusing. Wireframes are unpolished. They're not very pretty, they're a skeleton, and they're a planning tool. They're not meant to be a fully functional site. Without a wireframe, developers would go straight into coding without any guidance. And every developer, myself included, will tell you that this is an absolute recipe for disaster. Your wireframe shows the developers and stakeholders what to expect in an MVP. Now, for those that don't know, an MVP is a minimum viable product. If you're on the plus cohort, get used to the term MVP. This is what you want to be working towards at all points of the course. And once you have the MVP, you can then work towards the next bigger stage. Your wireframes can have a multitude of elements. So you're looking at the UX and UI components of your app. You're looking at the layouts, the navigation, you might bring into some flow, but there's a host of different things that you can include. There are 3 types of wireframes. The first is a low fidelity wireframe. Now these are really rough, as you can see from this image. They just capture the layout and the key elements of the page. They're the least likely to look like your final product. And often when workshopping with a team to create a project, this is kind of where you'll start. It's a really great way to just get your ideas on paper and solidify the rough concept. Often when I'm working on my own, I'll start with one of these as well, but I'll just do it on pen and paper. My desk is covered in half-drawn wireframes, and it's just a really nice way of getting those ideas down and figuring out what it is you're working through. That said, they can be digital. This image is a digital wireframe. Yeah. Next, we have medium to mid fidelity, interchangeable terms. So these wireframes are closer to the final product. They show the interface at greater detail and have a more realistic feel of what it is that you're building. These are also more client-facing. It allows the opportunity for your client to really grasp what it is that you're building. Sometimes it's quite hard as a developer or designer to be able to get the translation between what the client wants and what it is that you're building. So these are a really great opportunity for them to see what it is that you're doing and be able to understand it for themselves and then give feedback to see where you're going and what the next step should be. Both of these images are from my wireframes throughout the She Codes course. The first one, the low fidelity, that's from my graduate, the group project right at the end. And the middle one is from my portfolio, which I understand that you guys are doing next. So this is kind of what I was building this time last year. So then the final type of wireframe is a high fidelity wireframe. These can often be called prototypes as well. They're a much more polished version and they give attention to the elements within your wireframe. So looking at the pixels, the margins, the padding, it's really getting down to the nitty gritty before you then take it on to building the site. This is for an app that I'm currently building. And as you can see, the change from what I was doing at the beginning of last year and what I'm doing now is quite drastic, but they're also really drastically different projects. Okay, so I've got a couple of best practices that are just a couple of questions that are really worth you thinking about when you start your project. First of all, what are you designing? It's really important that you consider what it is that you're designing. Are you designing a website that's going to be on a desktop, or is it an app that's going to be on a phone? If so, there's no point doing something that's going to be on a big screen because you need to make sure that you're considering the shape and the sizing for a much smaller space. Then the next question I like to ask is, why am I designing it? Is this something that I need just for a client meeting? Am I doing this for myself to get my ideas down on paper? Is this something for you to consider how the flow of your app or website, for if you need to figure out how to get from A to B? These are all questions that I ask myself, but also just in general, sort of, it gives you a really good idea of getting as much information as you can to then figure out what it is that you need to get down and get designed. The third thing is consistency. Consistency is key. I'm a bit of a branding nut. I love anything to do with typography. I grew up with a graphic designer dad, so I get very excited about fonts. But consistency is key, and it's got multiple parts to it. I don't want to get too sidetracked into the design science of it, mainly because I don't know enough about it to be factually correct. But consistency considers both the design itself that you're doing within your app, but also that of what's out in the world for people to recognize. So if you're looking at the macro side of things, there's no point reinventing the wheel. A cog, for instance, as an icon, has been used as a symbol for settings for eons. There's no point then using that to symbolize the icon for your home page, for instance, because then your audience gets confused and they aren't able to navigate. So kind of thinking about that side of things when you're putting together your wireframes is super helpful. Think about the bigger picture as well as the micro. And when you're looking at the micro, it's important to be consistent across the app. So whether it's the size of your images, the way you are positioning your header, what you've got in your header or footer, the flow of your page, it's not helpful to chop and change. Humans like consistency. It's a nice way for flow. And it's the same as if you looked at a newspaper. You have all the information laid out and it kind of flows across all the pages. You know what you're going to expect on any page. If you start chopping and changing all over the place, you're not sure where to start. So it's the same idea for a website or an app. You want it to be intuitive. You want the time it takes for your audience, your user, to get from A to B to be as small as possible. This one I am not a fan of, but it is very good and very important to think of. Remove all the frills. Like I said, I love fonts, I love typography, I love color, but it's really important to focus on the important things like the layout and the structure and the user experience. So once you've solidified this, then you can worry about adding the frills. At this point, you can think about what is it that what's the color that we've got on this app? What's the images that we're wanting to pop into this design? If you spend too long, I know it's really easily done, and it was something our cohort last year got into, worrying about a color scheme for our portfolio. Loads of people were worrying about, oh no, have we got the right colors? What's the important thing? And they were focusing on that before they'd focused on how they were going to lay out their page. And while that's important, it wasn't as important as having the layout and knowing where everything was going to be and how you were going to lay it out. Just before I do top tips, has anyone got any questions, or are we all good? How's this? Thumbs up.
It's good.
Okay, so just a couple of top tips. So the first one is, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's an MVP that you're trying to build. It's not a fully functional app. It doesn't need to be perfect. You're just getting your key ideas down. That's the main point of this. And the second thing is, don't get too tied to the design. And this is not necessarily that easy. I know I definitely have in the past, but it's very easy to get tied and locked into a design, but sometimes it just doesn't work. Things change, your client doesn't like it, you're not a fan of it, it turns out something that you thought was going to be amazing, you then see it laid out and it doesn't work. Whatever it is, things have to change, and so get rid of it, start again. the point of a wireframe. They're designed to change and grow. So start with a low fidelity thing, get your ideas down, and then move up to high fidelity if you even need that. Okay, so wireframing tools. So there are two tools that I use to wireframe. So there is Figma and then Excalibur. Excalibur is what I've used for more low fidelity wireframes when I'm doing it digitally. These are quite rough drawings. I'll show you a couple in a minute. Whereas Figma is generally where I like to start to make prototypes. I definitely started with Excalibur. It's a completely free platform. And so it was just easy access. Figma also has a free side of things. And so you're able to do a certain number of projects within the free account. I now live on Figma. I love Figma. So I'm the biggest hype girl. But there is obviously a cost implication in terms of how much you can do for free. That said, you can do a lot for free. So it's definitely worth checking out. And that's where I would recommend that, that you go. That said, there's loads of other options out there. Take a Google, have a look. Everyone has a preference as to what they want to use. Okay, so I'm going to just try and remember which screen I have everything on. So this is Excalibur. So these are for a previous project. Let me find the project. So this was for my final project last year. If anyone has any questions, feel free to holler out. At this point, it's a really interactive side of things. I've kind of done my main talk as such. This is more to get the what it is that you want to get out of this. I know that a lot of you are producing your portfolio. So I was going to just show you this, then I'm going to show you what my portfolio initially looked like, but also what it currently looks like. So you can kind of see the beginning and also how it currently looks. But this is a really great opportunity. You're about to build your portfolio. So if you have any questions, if there's something that you're not sure of, go for it. Happy to answer. So for the my final project, you can see that we've just got sort of this rough image. This is a standard image that you can drop in. This is not something that we drew. And we've added in some notes to go alongside. So we've got both a mobile and a desktop version. Perth, I know we were looking at mobile friendly design yesterday. I'm not sure if Brisbane was. So we were taking that into consideration when looking at this program. We were told that it was going to be mainly desktop, so a lot of our focus was on desktop, but we wanted to take that into consideration. The other thing that we've got on the side is, you might not be able to see, but we've got things like the call to actions. So a call to action is like a button. And we have just highlighted, okay, what do all these call to actions take you to? And whether we could have a URL, so was it taking us to a specific thing? And so we've just started thinking about that. That's kind of what was going on in this. And that's the reason that we did it. This was quite a big project, so it needed a lot more information. So we had general notes, we had user information because there was a login and logout aspect. And then there was API calls, and yeah, we had the call to action. So they vary depending on what's going on. So we had our database side of things. So this is quite a big project. So don't get freaked out. It's a lot bigger than you need to be considering right now. Then if I pop over to Figma, you can see what I designed for my portfolio last year. So this was the original thing. And as you can see, I love a frill and I ignore everything I've told you all to do. And I worried about my fonts for way too long. And my color, which is the same color as I just painted my kitchen, and now is a color that is everywhere in my life. But yes, so I wanted it to be pretty bold. I wanted to really have that, like, this is who this site is about. And I've got quite a long name, so I figured let's just get it all out there straight away. So yeah, so this is just our landing. my landing page. And then the idea was that you would be able to move around. Initially, I was thinking that I wanted it to be multiple pages for my portfolio. And so I had the nav bar at the top that you'd then be able to click to get to the next pages. And depending on whether you were on the home screen or within the app, the website, the header would change, so it would interact in that way. So there's that little bit of recognition of bringing in that green continuation, but actually the background would change, so the focus then was on the work that I'd done in my portfolio of work. So that's just what I did. So this was my general work, and then looking at my about section, looking at me. And then a footer is always really good to consider. Generally keep your GitHub and LinkedIn are top things to keep in there, and it's always worth just making a point that it's your site, so you know, copyright it. So this was the first design I had. It changed quite a bit. So I then did realize that I was designing for desktop first, and that was not particularly helpful. So I then did my extended design, which was mobile. So this changed quite drastically. As you can see, I've gone from one really disconnected site, so it's page by page by page. And then what I then did was make this all one page. I wanted it to be easy access. I wanted it to be able to go to Beer Ops or DDD or whatever conferences there are, and people could just be able to find everything really quickly. Super easy access, and just have that information. So for that reason, I started by designing mobile. I popped my name in and a photo. That was this sort of continued. I liked this idea of an image and a photo in a circle. And then I had the about information. I wanted to pop in the skills that I learned. So whether it was HTML, CSS, or Django or Python or whatever it was, I wanted this portfolio to be something that would grow with me as a developer. So I knew that I could just chuck in an extra language if I wanted to. So that's kind of what I was thinking along those designs. The other thing that you can see is that I've got a few dotted lines. So these dotted lines are also worth considering. These reflect the actual screen size. So as you can see, this is one massive long website, and not even an iPhone, whatever, is this big. So the idea with this design was that every page that I was designing essentially went over onto the next page. So it encourages the user to continually scroll through my site rather than landing, just seeing my name and my photo and going, cool, that's it. There's nothing else to learn. I wanted them to continue scrolling down. So that's what I considered in terms of the sizing. I also wanted this nav bar to be locked at the top, to be a sticky nav bar. So I've sort of got that consideration there. So my about goes across again, and then I've started my next page before about finishes. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, so I've just got projects, and again, I've got 4 projects, but we can add more to swap them out, in and out, whatever's necessary. And then I did intro to work, but now that I'm looking at it, that's definitely what I have as a contact page. So this is kind of where I was thinking, and this, having done it in mobile, it was a lot easier then to broaden it out into desktop. And so I really was able to expand, and this was a much easier process than having to try and figure out it the other direction. So this is what it looked like. This is what it currently looks like, which is different. I couldn't quite get the image and my name overlaid, and so I put my signature instead. This has become my logo. It's on everything I do. It's on all my emails as well. And so it's become a really identifiable image. I have I wanted them to know it was me. It was one of the criteria as well to have an image of you, but I also just wanted it to be a bit fun, a bit lighthearted, and easy access in terms of getting to wherever you needed to get to. And as you can see, it works for, is responsive is the word I'm looking for. We don't need to see the photo of me behind. So you can then see me scroll down, little baby Kiva. We've got some information as to who I am. We've got the languages and frameworks, and this expands. So I've definitely added to this. I definitely need to add to this. And you can also, I added in a little bonus of being able to download my resume. So that might be something worth looking into. If that's something that you're interested in, so someone can have a proper in-depth information. I probably need to update that. Then we've got the previous projects, and I was focusing, so these update as and when I create anything. So these are all She Codes projects that I had created. Apart from this O&A, I did a previous bootcamp, and that was my graduation project. So, but they're all, they're all there. And they also take you to pages. So this is where I had the secondary page, and it's the same idea. It's pretty much the exact copy of what I've done on the homepage, but it gives you more information, more in-depth information about the projects. It gives you information about the languages and the frameworks. As you can see, this formatting didn't quite work. My Flexbox, not happy, but that's all good. And then you've got access to being able to see the live site if it's available, the back end and the front end code. So for those that are looking for that information. So that was that. And then I just had a get in touch, a contact form, and it works. So it did work. I actually haven't had anything from it recently, but it was working. And then I've got the same thing. So you can see that some things have changed. Some things have stayed the same. And I wasn't tied into that wireframe, but it was a really, really good starting point. And because I had that, I knew exactly what I was doing when I was coding. Made a huge difference. Cool. Well, I guess has anyone got any questions?
I do. It's Simone here. Hi. Thanks for that. That was nice to see somebody else's project, particularly because ours are coming up. So did you have to have your wireframe like ready for your portfolio website as well? Like, is that part of the?
I can't remember off the top of my head, and I don't know. I did my course in Perth, so I'm not sure how it works in Brisbane. I mean, it will be the same content and requirements. I have a feeling that it was something that we were asked to do, but it wasn't required.
Oh, okay, just to see the idea of how you got to. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's you can reverse engineer as well as produce a wireframe and to then build something. So
True.
One of the options I had this afternoon when I was thinking about demos was a demo of the Disney website. And this is what the Disney website looks like when it's a wireframe. And this was me during my lunch break, and that's all it is. It's just boxes and circles. So it's a handy thing, and I would really recommend, if it's something that you're wanting to kind of get your ideas around and see how other websites look, just have a look at a site and just go, right, where are the squares and circles? Because
yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
No worries. Anyone else? Sweet. All right. Well, I have popped up my LinkedIn there, so if anyone wants that, you're more than welcome to take it. Otherwise, I'm on Slack as well, and everyone that's on Slack is super helpful, so ask away. We've all done a wireframe, whether it was on a piece of paper or on Figma, of different stages, so Oh, I'm sorry, I've just seen your question. Yep, it was Figma and Excalibur. Thank you, Ashley. Yep, so ask away on Slack if you've got any questions. In the general channels, but feel free to contact me directly. I know my name's got 101 letters, so probably the general channel's easier. But yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone's portfolios when they eventually come out. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.